So picture this. You're finally locking in that Maui vacation. The flights are booked. You're picturing yourself on the beach. Then you see the rental car prices. Ouch! It can feel like a major budget buster.
Yeah, it really can sometime.
But what if that significant cost suddenly became surprisingly manageable? Maybe even a steal?
Well, that's the interesting situation unfolding right now, actually, in Maui's car rental market.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've been examining the latest data focusing on the week of May 5th, 2025, and looking ahead, thanks to a really sharp car rental blog that diligently tracks weekly price fluctuations.
Okay, so we've got some good data, and
Right.
we're not here to debate pineapple on pizza today.
Not this time, no.
Our deep dive today is all about understanding the current state of Maui car rental costs, digging into the why behind these prices, and most importantly, figuring out what this means for you if a trip to Maui is on your horizon.
Precisely. Let's jump right into the current picture then for the week of May 5th, 2025. What immediately jumps out is a really noticeable dip in prices across almost all vehicle categories compared to the previous week.
Noticeable is maybe an understatement, right? We're not talking pocket change here, are we? Give us the hard numbers.
You're right. For the budget-conscious economy, and compact cars have seen a dramatic 22% plunge.
Wow, 22%.
Yeah, hitting an average of $169 per week. That's with Payless, a substantial saving to kick things off.
Okay, $169, that's definitely catching my attention. And the trend continues, you said. What else did you find?
Midsize cars are down 17% to $210 per week again from Payless. SUVs have dropped by a significant 21%, now averaging $225 per week, also with Payless.
Payless seems to be where the action is at the low end.
Often, yeah. Even for larger groups, minivans are 10% cheaper at $321 a week. Still Payless.
Okay.
And if you're picturing those scenic drives top-down, convertibles have decreased by 13% to $426 per week, with 6T this time.
The 6T.
And for those needing maximum passenger space, a 7-seat SUV is down a remarkable 22% to $319 a week.
Yeah.
Also with 6XT.
That's quite a widespread decrease, almost everything. But I recall seeing one vehicle type didn't follow the crowd this week. What was that?
Good catch. Jeeps. Jeeps are the exception this week, showing an 18% increase to $428 per week at Alamo.
An increase? Okay, but why?
Well, the blog provides some context. They were suggesting this is likely a recovery from an unusually low price point the week before.
Ah, okay, so more of a correction.
Exactly. So while it's an increase, it appears to be more of a correction than a shift in the overall downward trend.
Gotcha. What really strikes me about these figures, though, $169, $210, they're approaching the low points we saw during a really tough period, aren't they?
They are. After the Lahaina wildfires back in September 2023, when travel was severely restricted.
Right. That puts the current affordability into a rather stark perspective, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And while these current prices are surprisingly low, it's also important to look at what the future booking data initially indicated.
Ah, yeah.
It seemed online reservation systems were predicting an upward trajectory for prices in the coming weeks, right?
They were. But that outlook has softened considerably recently, especially if we zero in on the Memorial Day holiday.
Memorial Day. Okay, what's happening now?
Exactly. The advanced price trends for Memorial Day week have seen a significant shift. Just 2 weeks ago, booking a rental for that week averaged around $383.
Okay, pretty standard maybe?
Then last week, that fell to $260.
Big drop.
And now this week, it's down to about $220 per week.
Wow. From $383 to $220 in 2 weeks. That's dramatic.
It is. This trend suggests we might even see further price reductions as we get closer to the holiday weekend. It likely reflects rental company strategy to prioritize higher occupancy rates, even if it means discounting closer to the rental date,
But the car's off the lot, basically.
especially during anticipated low seasons where demand forecasting can be challenging.
Right. And does this fit with the usual seasonal pattern for Maui? It does. Actually,
Yeah.
if we connect this to the broader historical context, the blog's 5-year average price data indicates a typical low season for Maui car rentals, extending from May to roughly mid-June.
Okay, so it aligns.
So what we're observing with these declining advance prices actually aligns with those typical seasonal patterns, although perhaps a bit more pronounced this year due to other influencing factors.
Right, the factors we'll get into. So the perennial question for travelers then, should you book your rental car now or take a chance and wait? What does this data tell us about maybe grabbing a last-minute deal in Maui?
Okay, here's where things get really interesting. Based on their 5-year historical analysis, the blog reports that last-minute rental car prices in Maui are typically lower than advanced reservation prices nearly 90% of the time.
90%. Wow, that high.
Yep. Particularly during these transitions into the low season like right now. Again, this likely reflects that strategy prioritizes occupancy, even if it means discounting late.
90%. That's a pretty strong indicator. Can you give us a real-world example of how that's playing out right now with these low prices?
Absolutely. Yeah. Take that economy car we mentioned, available for $169 per week, starting May 5th if you book now or very close to your travel dates.
Okay, $169 last minute.
Right. If you had booked just 1 week in advance, the average price was around $222.
So waiting a week saved you about 24%.
Exactly. And if you book 5 weeks out, the average was closer to $282 per week,
Whoa.
meaning you could save a significant 40% by booking last minute in this specific instance for that cheapest compact.
40%. That's a considerable amount of money that could be spent on, well, pretty much anything else on vacation.
Definitely. So for anyone listening who already has a Maui car rental booked for the near future with a flexible cancellation policy,
Check those prices again.
absolutely, it might be worth checking current prices. A quick rebooking could potentially put a significant amount of money back in your pocket.
Good advice. Okay, now let's consider where you actually pick up your rental car. Is there still a cost difference between renting at the airport versus an off-airport location in Maui?
Generally, yeah. Your assumption usually holds true. Off-airport rental locations often offer lower base prices.
Lower taxes, fees, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Due to reduced taxes and fees, and they typically don't carry the convenience premium that airport locations often do.
That makes logical sense. Lower overhead often translates to lower costs for the consumer.
Precisely. However, the blog points out that this typical pattern was recently disrupted.
Oh,
Yeah, due to high demand and limited vehicle availability at those off-airport locations for a bit.
so it wasn't always cheaper off-airport recently.
Not for a stretch there.
No.
But importantly, it appears that for the majority of vehicle types, the usual trend of more affordable off-airport rentals has returned this week.
Okay, so mostly back to normal. That's good news for travelers who are willing to take a short shuttle ride. Are there any exceptions to this renewed off-airport availability?
Yes, there are a couple of notable exceptions. The data currently shows zero reported availability for both convertibles
Right, the fun cars.
and the 7-seat SUVs at off-airport rental locations in Maui.
Okay, so if you have your heart set on either of the specific vehicle types, the airport might be your only option at the moment?
It looks that way based on this week's data, yes.
Okay, so Maui car rental prices are currently low. We get that. But how does that stack up against the other Hawaiian islands right now? Is Maui suddenly the budget leader for rental cars in the state?
That's a great question to put things in perspective. The blog provides a quick comparison of the cheapest one-week rental costs at the 5 major Hawaii airports for the week of May 5th.
Okay, let's hear it.
Honolulu is coming in at $237, Kauai at $237, Kona at $231, and Hilo at $261.
And where does Maui's Kahului Airport fit into that picture?
Maui is currently the most affordable with the cheapest one-week rental at just $165.
$165. Wow. That's significantly lower than the other major islands, like almost $50 less than Kauai, the next cheapest.
Exactly. So, yes, for the time being, Maui appears to be the most budget-friendly of the main Hawaiian islands when it comes to car rentals.
That's a pretty compelling factor for anyone still deciding which island to visit. But okay, what are the underlying reasons for these surprisingly low prices in Maui? It can't be just coincidence, can it?
No, you're absolutely right. The blog highlights a combination of factors contributing to this price drop. Firstly, the recovery of tourism in Maui following the devastating Lahaina wildfires has been slower than initially expected.
Right. That makes sense. Fewer visitors would naturally lead to less demand for rental vehicles.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that trend is supported by Visitor Bureau statistics. What else is playing a role? Secondly, there's been a noticeable decrease in travel from Canada. Canadian tourists make up a significant portion of Maui's visitor base.
They do, yeah.
And various political factors plus reductions in airline flights between Canada and the U.S. have resulted in fewer Canadians making the trip.
Okay, another hit to demand.
Lastly, broader economic uncertainty is likely having an impact. With economic headwinds and cautious consumer sentiment, people may be more hesitant to spend on discretionary travel like vacations.
So it sounds like a confluence of unfortunate circumstances for Maui's tourism economy, but potentially good news for cost-conscious travelers. What's the anticipated outlook given these factors? Does the blog speculate?
Considering these ongoing influences,
Uh-huh.
yeah, the blog suggests that the softer rental car market in Maui could persist throughout the summer into the fall.
Really? Until when, maybe?
At least until the traditional winter holiday travel season potentially brings an increase in demand.
Got it. This blog seems to have a really good grasp on the specifics. Can you tell us a bit more about where this price data is actually coming from? How are they tracking this?
Yeah, they have been meticulously tracking rental car prices on a weekly basis. Since July 2024, they've monitored 7 different vehicle categories from 10 major rental companies, specifically operating at Maui's Kahului Airport, OGG.
Okay, that's pretty comprehensive. 7 categories, 10 companies weekly.
And for the most budget-friendly economy car category, their tracking extends even further back to July 2023. They also reference a prior in-depth study they conducted across a 5-year period from 2013 to 2018.
Wow, so they have deep historical data too. And what about the information regarding off-airport rentals?
The off-airport price and availability data are gathered from their surveys of 8 different rental companies that have locations across Maui, including airport locations, nearby towns, and resort areas.
Okay, and they cite their sources.
Yes, they specifically cite rentalcars.com and rentals.mauicarental.biz as their primary sources for the price data they analyze.
All right, so to wrap things up then, what's the main takeaway for anyone listening who's been dreaming of a Maui getaway but maybe put off by costs?
The key message is that Maui car rental prices are currently at surprisingly low levels, really approaching the lows seen during that period of severely restricted travel.
Because of that mix of factors hitting demand.
Exactly. So if transportation costs have been a significant concern for you in the past, when considering a trip to Maui now might be a particularly opportune time to make those plans.
And for those who have already secured a rental car for an upcoming Maui trip, what should they do?
It's definitely worth taking a moment to review your existing reservation, especially if it offers flexible cancellation or modification options.
Check the current rates, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Rebooking at the current lower rates could potentially lead to significant savings, particularly if your original booking was made well in advance.
This has been a really insightful look into a very specific aspect of travel costs. It really makes you think about how many different factors can influence pricing, doesn't it?
It really does.
So beyond just rental cars, considering these significant price swings and the various influencing factors we've discussed in the Maui travel market right now, what other elements of a Maui vacation might also be experiencing unusual pricing? Hotels, tours, maybe?
Hmm. That's a good question.
And how might you, the listener, employ strategies to uncover those potential opportunities and save even more on your trip? Something to think about.